My name is Nick Williams. I'm the conductor of the concert band. On Wednesday, April the 10th, Concert Band 1 will be performing two pieces. The first is Lincolnshire Posy, written by Percy Granger. This piece is one of the most important pieces in the wind band repertoire, and we're excited to perform all of the movements in the concert tonight. The second piece that we're doing is a newer piece by John Mackey. It's his percussion concerto entitled Drum Music, where we're featuring as a soloist Professor Paul Rinnick.
It was written in 2011, so it actually incorporates and involves a fairly modern repertoire of what a percussionist does nowadays. As you can see, there's marimbas and vibes and a whole lot of drums and a lot of equipment, and so there's a lot of variety in what's involved, and that's kind of what a modern percussionist does. That's what all the percussionists here at school do, and that's what we're trained to do. So he actually consulted with a team, or he must have talked to some people. I know that it was a consortium that got together and commissioned the piece, and I think they must have been fairly specific about the percussion duties or what they're required to do. So Infiltrate is the first movement, and it starts sort of sparse. It's in a sort of a mixolydian mode, so it's really pretty easy on the ear, but it's kind of modern sounding, and it's thematic material, and it's really interesting, and it sort of develops and builds, and it's very sparse. Lots of syncopation involved in the wind parts and the percussion part. A lot of kind of modern marimba techniques, and you have to actually play vibraphone for a couple of phrases at this, with very, very short periods of time in between. The second movement is called Incubate, and that is sort of a ballad, really beautiful, really interesting treatment of bowing on the vibraphone. It's primarily on vibraphone. There's no other instrument being played in that movement, and so you have to be. There's a certain coordination involved in bowing some of these things. There's even a point where the bow comes in between the mallets, and so he uses those two voices. It's really pretty. It sounds sort of like a piano piece. And then it moves on, and there's a very short cadenza that he was specific about. It wants to stay on the bass drum. And so the climactic moment of the ballad, the second movement, has the percussionist simply just backing it up with big, broad bass drum notes while it's got the main material in the wind. And then that finishes, and the percussionist stays on the bass drum and sort of is required to stay on the bass drum and perform sort of a bridge cadenza or some kind of material. I think he put it in the score that it was up to the percussionist to figure out how to connect the second movement and the third movement. So it's relatively brief, but it stays on the bass drum, and you know, some sound effects or some things that the bass drum can do. And then the last movement, I think, is what he would consider is the primary movement of the concerto, which is the big drum thing. And so his image, I think, was of a rock and roll drummer with like 6 toms all in a row. As you can, as you'll see, it's a little bit impractical to do like that. It's almost impossible to play like that. So he's kind of reconfigured the drums so that it'd be a much easier take on it. And there's some, I'd say some really modern sort of drum set sounding things in the piece, and it's really fun to listen to. It sounds kind of young and kind of current, and it's I think unabashedly sort of loud the whole time, sort of like rock music or some kind of high energy sort of thing, and there you have it, and that's John Mackey's drum music.
The 2 concert bands include about 170 students, and we divide them into Concert Band 1 and Concert Band 2. In many of the sections, we have 2 subsections of players. So in Concert Band 2 and Concert Band 1, there are several students who will play only 2 or 3 pieces as we rotate players. This concept of rotating players is something that we do in all of the ensembles in wind studies, but with the concert bands, because of the number of students, the part rotation happens on a more regular basis and a more formalized basis. So as you watch the concert, both halves, Concert Band 2 before intermission and Concert Band 1 after intermission, you noticed and will notice that students come on and off the stage quite frequently. And this is an opportunity for us to perform several different pieces and give students the opportunity to play on some while not playing on others. The concert program featured Concert Band 2. They performed 4 pieces. The first one was the William Byrd Suite, which was conducted by Justin White, one of our Master's Conducting Associates. The concert also included the Sousa March, Nobles of the Mystic Shrine. In addition to that, the Concert Band 2 performed Cloudburst, which was conducted by Master Student Chris Qualley. And the Concert Band 2 also performed 2 movements from the Alfred Reed Third Suite, conducted by one of our doctoral conducting students, Nipat Kanchana. With the Lincolnshire Posy, I wanted to expose the students to one of the most important pieces in our repertoire. It's a challenging work in 6 movements. Features a lot of folk songs that Granger found on a trip to England. The The piece exposes the students to a lot of the folk song tradition of the period with a lot of the typical Granger orchestrations. There's several solos throughout the group, throughout the piece, and it's just one of the challenging works in our history. So I wanted to be sure that these students had an opportunity to work on this piece. The second one, the Mackey Percussion Concerto, drum music, we're featuring Paul Rennick. This piece includes 18 instruments for the soloist. The work is in 3 movements. The first one features Mr. Rennick mostly on marimba and vibraphone. The second movement features him mostly on the vibraphone. It's a beautiful, quiet, slow piece that builds into a pretty energetic ending that has a coda of a bass drum cadenza, which is unusual. This bass drum cadenza leads into the third movement, which starts with a percussion ensemble idea, and it grows into a full ensemble statement, ending with what's basically kind of a rock drum set solo for the end. I think at the very end the part calls for 6 different drums as well as several cymbals and other instruments. It's a very, very cool way to end the concert. The second half of the concert featuring the music of Granger and Mackey. Also tune in tomorrow night for the Wind Symphony concert, 7:30 p.m. with featured guest clarinetist from the New York Philharmonic, Mark Nuccio.